K. Morris, and you are about to embark on the next Pioneer Knowledge Services Because You Need to Know, a digital resource for you to listen to folks share their experience and knowledge around the field of knowledge management and nonprofit work. Adam Walker is sitting in Atlanta, Georgia, wondering what's going to happen next. And as we look at 2023 rolling out ahead of us, we got 11 months left. What's on the agenda, Adam? What's happening?
Man, a lot. For me, personally, a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of learning, working on some skills, working on Mandarin right now, and a whole lot of podcasting.
Mandarin. Are you going to podcast in Mandarin? What's the...
No, I'm not going to podcast. I mean, no, I'm learning how to say, like, I want tofu. Like, I got that. Like, I'm good with that level of Mandarin at the moment.
But why Mandarin? What's the driver? What's the ambition there?
Oh, man, well, that's a long story. So we have we have 5 kids, my wife and I, and one of our children is adopted from China. We brought him home when he was 2.5. We've been in process of adopting his foster brother that's still in China since 2019, but COVID put a hold on that. I became hopeful that 2023 might be the year we finally get to travel and go pick him up. He's 13 now. So
that's exciting.
Yeah. So I'll be able to order tofu pretty much. I'll be able to ask where the bathroom is and order tofu, maybe ask where the airport is. Like that, we'll see about that. So, you know.
Are you using a favorite software for that education?
Yeah. So I'm using a couple things. One is I think it's called Hello. Let me look at my phone. It's called Hello Chinese, which is a fantastic app for learning Chinese in particular. I'm also using Anki for flashcards. If you haven't used Anki for flashcards, it's pretty amazing. And then I'm listening to a book. I've listened to it once already, but I've listened to it again. It's called Learning Mandarin Chinese with Paul Noble. It's pretty amazing. So I spend about 30 minutes a day at minimum on the skill. Lately, it's been more like 40, 45 minutes. Part of my New Year's resolutions is like tracking my time doing things rather than saying I'm going to do this.
Oh, wait a minute now. Tell me about this. Tell me about this tracking time.
Shameless plug. I just wrote a blog post about this on my blog at adamjwalker.com. And so now I realized that historically I do pretty terrible, like saying like, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to write this book, or I'm going to do this or whatever. If I just say like, I'm going to spend X amount of time doing this thing, and then I've got a timer on my phone home screen that I can use and time it. And then I have a Google sheet where I'm logging all my time, then I'll actually do it. I decided I was going to do essentially 3 things. I'm going to time track 4 things actually this year. One is I want to read for an hour a day. So I've been doing that. I want to write. I've been working on a book about podcasting. So I want to write 15 minutes a day in that book. I want to learn a skill. Right now it's Mandarin for 30 minutes a day. And I want to play video games for less than an hour a day. That's the other. I mean, I don't usually play for an hour a day, but I do get on with my friends and I can lose track of time occasionally. And my kids go to bed early and I don't necessarily.
Well, the time tracking is an interesting formula, and you bring up something that refreshes an idea that I had planted in my brain probably 2-3 years ago, where I was talking about as a self-employed business person, I hated to do the bookkeeping. When I first started out in a business, my first one a long time ago, I would just have like a box of all the stuff, you know, the receipts and all that jazz. And then I would just at the end of the year go to the accountant and here you go, have fun, see you later. So his advice was everybody's got that part that they don't like, that they really begrudgingly know they have to do, but they spend all their energy fighting doing it. He said the best thing in his application is if you have an egg timer and just set it for 60 minutes. He said you can do anything for 60 minutes, and there's a psychological trigger somehow that says, oh, I only have to do this for an hour, or 30 minutes, or whatever the bucket you want to put that. And it kind of gives you permission to just say, okay, I'm going to do what I can, 30 minutes or whatever the time block is. And then that's...
Well, and not only that, but the flip side is also true. So in his book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about how if you're having trouble starting something, commit to the first 2 minutes. Like, I'm going to start, I'm going to do it for 2 minutes. And what you'll find is by the time you're 2 minutes in, like, it's not a big deal to keep going. And so like, whether it's exercising or writing or going on a run or whatever it is, like commit to 2 minutes and then you'll almost always go beyond that.
So what do you think the psychological gunk is in our brain that keeps us from just doing something that simple? What is it?
Man, I wish if I knew that, I would be a world famous author and speaker and coach and I would be super rich. That's what happened. I didn't answer that question. So
you don't have the answer to the
it's-
question.
I mean, I think it's that we often know what we should do, but we lack the motivation to do it. But then once we're in it, we recognize like this isn't really all that bad at all.
Yeah, exactly.
It's scary. It's the hurdle of starting is so great, and once you've started, it's like, oh, this is fine.
Well, along with that, let's keep going. I want to find out what your motivation is and how you got started in the world of nonprofit work.
I got started actually as a teenager. I started my first nonprofit as a teenager. I put together like Christian-based youth rallies. And then we also did like a ministry to people in Little 5 Points, which was kind of a rundown part of the city at the time. It's not now; it's pretty fancy now, but it was run down at the time to people experiencing homelessness. So we'd get on there and we'd give them like coffee in the winter and blankets and pillows and stuff. We had like a little coffee shop thing that we did a couple nights a month as well. And then that just kind of turned into like just a passion for doing good. So at one point I tried to start a church, which I don't recommend doing. That's terrible idea. And I mean, look, people do it, and I got a great buddy that's been very successful at it. I was really, really terrible at it. And so, but I did that, and that sort of segued into my work in marketing. And then the marketing sort of did well, and that segued back into my work into nonprofits. And so why nonprofits, I think, is that I really like supporting people that are doing good in the world, that are trying to help other people, that are trying to really make a difference. I don't always want to be the person leading that nonprofit necessarily. Sometimes I do, but in general, I like supporting them a lot.
You're in that supportive role, but where did that mechanism, where did it come from in you? I understand you were young and you started a nonprofit, but what was the indicator to you that you should even care? Was it a parent?
I mean, maybe. I mean, like my mom's a pretty good example. I mean, she had a lucrative law practice and decided to make no money and become a judge instead. And so to impact people's lives, and she's made a profound impact on so many people's lives. And I know all those stories, growing up. And my dad was always he's the guy rooting for the underdog, whether it's political parties or whether it's like watching the football game. He's like, I just want the underdog to win. Like that's the guy. Like he's always rooting for the underdog. And so maybe that's ingrained in me a bit. And also just I don't know if I would even call it at the time, but a recognition that I had a lot, I wouldn't have said this at the time, but a lot of privilege. Like I recognize like I've got a lot. Like for example, when I was growing up, there was still orphanages, and my dad and I would go to the orphanage and like donate clothes. And it's like, oh, well, there's kids right here in this city that don't have parents or clothes, and like I do. And so I think it's just kind of being exposed to those things and recognizing that there's a lot of people that need some help.
So was this influenced because of the urbanism you lived in, do you think? Because a lot of people can live regardless, rural, urban, wherever they are, but seem to have some blinders on to those types of needs, right? So
the problem with me is, and I think this is often the problem with a lot of people, is that once you see something, once you learn something, once you know something, you can't unsee it, unlearn it, and unknow it. Once I know as a kid that I can take my prized starter Raiders jacket, which God knows why I had a starter Raiders jacket. I didn't live anywhere near where the Raiders would play, but it was cool,
It was cool.
But I know
it was cool.
Yeah, I know as a kid I can take my starter Raiders jacket and I can donate that to a kid in an orphanage, and now that kid has a jacket, and I can look that kid in the eye. Like, you can't unknow that. For us, I mean, we need to expose kids to those things. We need to expose kids to people that are in need and let them know that this could be us very easily.
Aspiration and inspiration, and I use those two synonymously, at least in this conversation, is that because there is a spark that basically happens that make people aware of caring.
Yeah.
The need to do that. Maybe it's a soulful level, maybe it's just a ideological level. I don't know what bucket you want to throw it into, but it's always amazing to me when you find people that care.
Right. Yep.
Is a humanistic element that I don't know how you teach it, other than observation, and because it's almost like going back to our initial, if you set the timer for 30 minutes, you can do anything. When you tell a kid, and I've had a few kids, so I'm just referring to this in that framework. If you tell a kid, don't do this or go do that or what have you, there's an automatic subconscious maybe trigger that goes off that, oh, well, Dad said I'm not,
right,
whatever. I'm sure that's not your case.
Yeah,
Case,
it's never,
yeah,
everybody's right. Yeah.
I'm just really curious. How do you bring that to somebody's awareness to the point where the framework starts to sink in that maybe we should care for each other?
That's a great question. I think about it in the context of my own kids. I'm not entirely sure I've done an amazing job of exposing them to things. Part of that's COVID-19. I mean, that sort of like put the kibosh on exposing them to a lot of things, including COVID at the time.
Yeah.
You know, but it has been on my mind recently, like, for example, to go down and spend some time in helping people that are unsheltered in downtown Atlanta. I've got a project I want to do, podcast related with people that are unsheltered, and I want to take some of my kids to see that and understand that. We try to travel with our kids, that they see things, they experiencing things, they understand that there's different ways of living. We took all the kids to China on a crazy trip in 2019. And, you know, like, you get exposed to a lot. Like, these people live very differently than we live, and they value things very differently than we do. And so I think the more exposure we can offer to other generations, the more we can begin to open their eyes.
Agreed. Let's move forward to the time frame where 48 and 48 became something in your target of getting things done.
Right.
Just quickly explain what it is and how it came about.
48 and 48 is a nonprofit that puts on events with the ideal event being that we build 48 free nonprofit websites in 48 hours. Now, some of our events are smaller, so we might not build a full 48 sites. I think the most we built in one event was probably 61 sites, if I recall correctly. We started in 2015. I got involved by accident. I got a call. I mean, I did.
You're just walking down the street, and all of a sudden,
in a sewer. I got a call. You know, I've got a buddy. His name's Jeff Hellemeyer. He's big in the marketing space here in Atlanta. We were kind of becoming good friends around 2015, and I was running a company at the time that was a digital marketing company, and we built websites. And so he calls me. He's like, "Hey, do you think we could do an event to build 5 nonprofit websites in a weekend?" I was like, "Yes, no problem. 5 websites in a weekend, done." He goes, "Great. How about 10? Sure. Okay, great. How about 20? Okay, sure. Okay, how about, can we do, like," so he just kept writing. He finally gets to 50. He's like, "Can we do 50 websites a week?" I was like, "Yes, but you have to stop there. Like, you got to stop." He goes, "All right, we'll back it down to 48 and we'll call it 48 and 48 because it's 40 websites in 48 hours. So I said, "Yes, like, I will help you do this." And I signed on thinking, like, I'm volunteering to help you start. You're starting this thing. I'm going to volunteer. It's going to be great. So we get to the first meeting, and, you know, Jeff's gathered a bunch of people, and these are a bunch of people I don't know, and a lot of them, I mean, just to be very transparent, like, I'm running a very small web design company. These are people who have had much larger careers than I have at much larger companies, much more esteemed. And we're sitting in the room, and Jeff's like, "All right, we're going to get the meeting started. You know, I'm Jeff Hellemeyer. This is my co-founder, Adam Walker." Oh, okay. I guess I just co-founded. Well, that's cool. Let's do that. Like, that sounds great. So we did it. You know, we pulled it off in 2015 with an Atlanta event. The next year we decided, like, hey, we did it in Atlanta with our friends. It worked. Can we do it in another city where we don't have friends? So we did it in Atlanta and New York the next year. And then we expanded. At some point before COVID, I think we were in like 6 or 7 cities. It was fantastic. And I spent a very little bit of time as the executive director. And thankfully, it just wasn't a great fit for me. We now have an executive director, Seema, who's amazing and does a fantastic job running the agency. And I can kind of go back to that role of just being a, like, super volunteer, like, rah-rah cheerleader kind of dude. That's my current role.
We went from the recommendation, don't start a church, but now we're on the other side of that. Yeah, start a nonprofit. So,
well, for sure.
How easy was the process for those out there that don't know how to create a nonprofit?
Well,
how easy or hard was it?
In all fairness, we found a volunteer that was a CPA that knew the process for starting a nonprofit, and she was just amazing and took care of basically all the heavy lifting. I feel like if you're trying to start a nonprofit that really has some heart behind it and you've got some kind of network, you can probably find someone like that. I don't believe that starting a 501c3 is necessarily all that difficult, but there are some hoops to jump through that you just need to be aware of.
What would be your recommendation for someone that does have a passion and has a caring for somebody in the world that wants to help? If they wanted to start a nonprofit, what would be your top 3 items they need to start with?
Okay, so first I would say don't. I mean, listen, I'm being completely serious. If you are thinking about starting a nonprofit and there is any possible way you can be talked out of it, you should be talked out of it. Starting nonprofits are for people that are so compelled and so passionate and so willing to overcome every obstacle that they cannot not do it. I'm just saying, don't do it unless you have to do it, and then do it and dive right in.
So commitment. Apparently commitment is...
Well, commitment, passion. I mean, tsunami of will comes to mind. Like, I don't, it's just hard. Like, you just have to know that.
It's hard. Every turn is difficult.
Fundraising is hard. Every piece of it is hard. And you have to be willing to embrace that and walk through that. It's much harder, in my mind, to start a nonprofit than it is to start a for-profit. I've started many of both, and starting a nonprofit is much more difficult. And much more taxing on you as an individual. So just know that going in. So what was the question? It was three things.
So commitment to embrace the terribleness of the void all by yourself. I get that. All right.
Yeah. There's three things I would tell you. Like, is that okay? I think the second is you've got to be able to explain what you're doing in a simple, compelling narrative. Nonprofits are just terrible at this. Like, if you go to for example, I was on the marketing committee for a local nonprofit that shall remain unnamed. And it's one of the best known local Atlanta nonprofits that there is, founded by an extremely well-known, reputable person. And I'm on the marketing committee. So I sit down with the head of marketing for this nonprofit and I say, okay, listen, I've known about this organization for literally years. Since I was a child, I've known the name of this organization. Please tell me what you do. Okay, that literally was I've known about you for 30 years. Tell me what you do. She got in front of a whiteboard and spent 15 minutes mapping out this. I left there still having no idea what they did. No clue whatsoever. This is the head of marketing for a very reputable nonprofit. You've got to be able to tell somebody. I mean, it goes back to that elevator pitch. I know that's cliche.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But come on, you've got to be able to say what you do very simply, very quickly. Like, it's absolutely critical. So that's number two.
I would guess the first thing that raises a red flag in your marketing mentality is if you got to rely on a whiteboard, that's bad.
That's bad. That's not good. I'm saying, and I've been a part of a lot of nonprofits, and the majority of them cannot express what they do in simple terms. Another great example. Wow. So we're at the first 48 and 48 event. It's 2015. My son, who I believe at the time was 8 years old, is there. So we got the kids involved. And we put in a video. I forgot the video to say. We put a video camera on him. Hey, what is 48 and 48 about? My 8-year-old could explain it to the camera impromptu without me having coached him whatsoever. He just heard me talk about it. He totally understood. If an 8-year-old cannot explain what you do, there is a problem and you need to reassess.
I mean,
that's all I'm trying to say.
What was the name of the guy, the TV show where he would go in and revolutionize a restaurant from the ground up?
Yeah. Now I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
But he would usually, big muscle guy, right? So he would usually start looking at the menu. And if you've got page after page after page of just all over the place food items, he's like, the first thing to do is make that simple. Get it down to a few things you can knock out of the park and be happy with that. So it's almost like that. You have to have it concise and easily understandable. And that's not always easy to do if nobody's driving.
No, it's incredibly hard to do. In fact, it's one of the most difficult things to do in marketing is to take the complexity of an organization or an idea or a movement and turn it into something that's bite-sized and tangible and simple.
So number two, that's number two.
So number three, I think that's number two. Number three, I would just say build the right team. Build the right team, gather the right volunteers. You're only going to be as good as the people that surround you. So whether those are volunteers or sponsors or benefactors of some kind or staff or whatever they are, just build the right team for that right moment. I mean, great example, 40 and 48 is a perfect example. Like, so Jeff knows so many high-level people. It's to this day, it astounds me, his network. So you could have asked any one of a ton of people with a ton of reputation and weight and power and authority and money and all these things that I don't have. And he could have asked any one of them to start 48 with him. But he strategically asked me specifically because I ran a company that built the type of websites that we needed to build. So I had the expertise to go, okay, this is the infrastructure. Within a pretty short amount of time, I mean, I think it was 8 months maybe of planning, I was able to come up with an entire operation system to make it all work. Here's what we need from the nonprofits. Here's the sign-up process. Here's the questionnaires we're going to give them. Here's all the stuff that we're going to have for the teams. Here's what the teams. Here's how the team should be built. We need a graphic designer and this and this and this. And I could put it all together. because I'd already been doing it for a bunch of years at that point in time. He brought in the right team, and I was one of those team members, and it's been pretty great.
Back this up. Let's go back to square one. We've walked through the initial process, the pain points, and the 3 things you need. But I'm curious, how did he come up with the idea that that's what nonprofits needed? What was his needs analysis?
I mean, I think it was experience. He had been a part of a bunch of nonprofit boards. We had this saying in early 48 and 48, like nonprofits have a habit of doing good, but not looking good. Your average nonprofit is doing just amazing work, like just unbelievable work. And their websites are just garbage. And the messaging is just and like nobody understands what they're doing. And he's looking at these websites, he's a part of these boards. He's like, this doesn't make any sense. It's like let's showcase the work. If you think about it, a website is kind of the foundational marketing messaging element that a nonprofit needs in order to succeed. It's essentially the first thing you've got to have, because it's what's going to allow you to be validated to the larger community. It's going to let them know that you are real and you exist in the world and this is what you're about.
Well, stages of marketing 40, 50 years ago, you had to have a business card.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, now the business card's really not that essential anymore because people are digitally connected, and that's where they go to go find out what you do.
That's it. Yeah.
That's, well, we've tackled that. So what else you got? What's on the future?
Well, I mean, for me, the future is always some kind of entrepreneurship, probably. Like I've got a couple of companies that I'm trying to grow right now, and I'm always thinking about others that I can start, but I've only got so much time and so many resources. Yeah. So you want me to talk about that? Is that
you still got a finger in the pie of 48 and 48?
Yeah, mostly in a support role. So I'm on the board. Okay. So I help essentially just give advice when advice is requested. I have no direct operational role. And our executive director, Seema, is fantastic. She's just done a phenomenal job. So I basically try to support her and stay out of the way is really my main goal. Yeah. I do offer tech support during the weekends. So I hop on Slack and answer tech questions during the weekends. And that's super fun.
Going from marketing and or website development to vocal connections with people on a podcast. Where'd that come from? Do you have a radio background?
No. I got 2 stories for this that explain how I got to where I am, like with this whole podcasting.
Is this a carryover from the church thing that you just?
Oh no, not. So 2 events happened. One was, I believe, in 2015. I was meeting up with my friend Sanjay Parekh. Sanjay is one of those people that you sort of want to be in his orbit. You know, like there's certain people in your life and you're like, oh, they're successful. They've done amazing things. I need to like be around them. So like some of that'll like rub off, like wash off. So Sanjay falls in that category. So I would hit him up every like 6 months, like, hey, let's have coffee. And he was kind enough to say yes. And so one of those 6 months, he said, hey, I'm doing this incubator. Come and check it out. It's a tech incubator. So I went and checked it out. We're doing the tour. He points to this room and he goes, well, let me show you the professional podcast studio. Let me show you that. So we look at the podcast studio, and then he kind of offhand says, you know, I've got this podcast studio and I'm running this incubator. I really should have a podcast. I'm like, I will help you run a podcast. Let's do a podcast together. And he goes, okay. So on a whim, we started that. It became Tech Talk Y'all. I think we're on episode like 267. It's a weekly technology news podcast. And it's Sanjay and I just talking about what happened this week in tech news, just cracking each other up. Like I never laugh harder than I laugh when I'm recording podcasts. It's the greatest thing ever. That kind of got me going in podcasting. So then I'm trying to grow my digital marketing agency, and I'm thinking, you know, podcasting is growing, and I want to have more clients. At the time, my goal, I want to have more clients are nonprofits and you know, ideally larger nonprofits. How can I get in front of those nonprofits? Well, I decided I'm going to start a podcast about nonprofit marketing where I'm going to interview high-level nonprofit marketers about nonprofit marketing, and the target audience is also nonprofit marketers. So I'm interviewing my target market and the content's for my target market, and it's amazing. And so in doing that, somehow I started reaching out to all of these large nonprofits, and I reached out to Susan G. Komen's head of marketing and actually got a response, which was like the most amazing day ever. And I'm like, this is fantastic. So I interview Komen's head of marketing. At the end of the year, she goes, Adam, can we talk for a few more minutes? I'm like, yes, let's talk some more. Let's be best friends. Yes. Can we be buddies? Yeah. You know, like, yes. She goes, you know, we've been thinking about doing a podcast for Komen. Can you help us with that? And can you host it? Yes, I can. Now, and it's one of the best things I've ever done personally and in my career. It's one of my absolute favorite things because I interview all these people about these amazing stories related to breast cancer and hopefully inspire some hope, some compassion in the community. So then fast forward again to 2019, and my digital agency did pretty well, and we got acquired and wrapped up into a larger agency. Then COVID hit. I left that larger agency, and I did some nonprofit CMO stuff, which was really fun, and I really enjoyed that. I did that 4 days a week. I needed a 1 day a week gig, and I was like, I'm going to do podcasting as a business because I really like it, and I think I'm pretty good at it, and I'm going to offer this as Earth. And so I started doing more and more and more of that. And then in 2022, that became my full-time thing. And now Sanjay and I are partners at Edgewise Media, and it's fantastic.
So what I want to point out here is, in this historical perspective, what I heard was an opportunity popped you in the face and you said, hell yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Right.
It's just like that with 40 and 48, right? It's like, yes, I will do that.
So let's talk about that personality, either plus or flaw. I don't know how you want to call that yet, but it's both.
Because I say yes to things that I shouldn't say yes to for sure. Like I'm picking up some giant movie back. Why did I say yes? I'm pretty sure I had a family wedding this weekend. Yeah, that's why. I need to get out of here. I got to go to Denver right now. So, yeah.
That spark of seeing possibilities that overcomes an internal mechanism of either fear or those people behind in your memory that say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, or,
Right. Yeah.
Where does that balance come to be able to look and see and be aware that, hey, this could be something? Bring that up because I'm very much like that. I think it's genetic myself.
Yeah.
Because opportunity is something that it doesn't always have to be cognitive. It's almost like an emotional, like, oh, yeah, you can feel the juice, right? So what is that for you?
I think there's a couple things. The first is, a part of my personality is, oh, you say I can't do that? Watch me. And so, like, that's part of why I started a nonprofit as a high schooler, because I'm like, what? You said I get, like, oh, I got this. Like, we started the nonprofit in high school, we raised like $30,000 for some stuff. We had a bank account. We were 501c3. Like, we were legit. Like, it can be like, watch me do this. So that's part of it. The other part of it is, I think you have to recognize that there's certain people in your life that can help you get to where you want to go. When they open a door to an opportunity, you would be insane not to say yes. So, for example, if somebody other than Sanjay had said, like, they're going to do a podcast, and maybe it's like somebody that, that is not anywhere near where he's not the entrepreneur Sanjay is, he's not as ambitious or whatever else, I probably would have said no, because it's not about the podcast, it's about the person. And so for me, it was like, oh, I get to hang out with Sanjay every week and learn from him and talk, and like, we could be buds. Like, oh yeah, let's do that. And now he's one of my closest friends. And same thing with Jeff. Like, at the time, Jeff and I were just, with 40 and 48, we were like just becoming like pretty decent friends, but we could like hang out all the time now and like do this thing together. And like, because of that, I ended up being able to Jeff and I traveled to London together. We traveled to New York together a bunch of times. We took two of our sons to New York with us. Like, we did all these amazing things and all these amazing adventures. And now he's also one of my very closest friends, just because I said yes to the opportunity that would put me in his orbit more often. And it's been one of the greatest things I've ever done. I mean, both those were.
So is entrepreneurship something that is a family trait?
I mean, yeah. So my mom was a lawyer. She started her own law practice. She did pretty well at it, I would say. She did a little bit of real estate stuff. She did pretty well at that as well. She kind of had that example.
Mindset, right?
Yeah. And then, my dad, he was not an entrepreneur, but he was a leader in corporate America. And I got to kind of experience, but like when he was working full time, he was pretty high up at Bell South Mobility, which became AT&T or whatever. And so he had a car phone back when like no one had a car, like nobody had a car phone, in the early 80s. And so I still remember like he'd pick me up from school and we'd be riding home and he'd be like on conference calls, like he's the boss, like telling people like, well, let's do this, let's not do this, let's do it. And so you learn a lot just by absorbing all type of stuff, So I think I learned a lot of leadership stuff from kind of overhearing my dad in those conference calls, and certainly learned a lot of entrepreneur. I mean, my mom is hard. Like, mom's like, let's go on an adventure. And I'm like, okay, let's go get lost and go on an adventure. That sounds great. So a lot of entrepreneur stuff from her for sure. Yeah.
I'm going to tip the hat towards your dad and that technology access that you had.
Yeah.
Might have planted the seed of technologies like really cool, man.
Listen, I was the kid whose dad had a phone in his car, and that was like, I'd be on the way home from school. Yeah. Hey, I want to call all my little friends on the street and see if they're home so I can let them know I'm going to be home in a couple of minutes. I'm calling you from the car.
The car. I know.
That was it.
Thank you for sharing and giving us a glimpse of what has led you on the path, or at least been on the side or in the way or in the pathway itself, that created all these opportunities for you, and that you've got the continual observation skill to just keep plugging away, go back to that first big thing you said about that start a nonprofit. You've got to have that, the ability to suck it up and just keep moving,
Yeah, that compulsion to do it no matter what. Compulsion to do it. No, like that. You have to have that, like, oh, you think I can't do this? You think I won't succeed? I got this. That's got to be your mentality.
Well, thanks for sharing that all today, and let's have another conversation soon, I say.
Yeah, this is fun. Let's do it again, for sure.
You have just finished our latest Because You Need to Know, a public service of Pioneer Knowledge Services. Please join us on LinkedIn and find us at pioneer-ks.org.